Product Health for me is quite a personal story, and I thank those guys for that. But I want to move over to the panel that we've got tonight. We have Sian Phillips from the Cannabis Trades Association. We have Hannah Deacon from Maple Tree, and also an advocate and cannabis entrepreneur, and also the mother of Alfie, and very much responsible for the legalisation for medical cannabis in 2018. We have Simpa Carter, yeah. Woo, woo! We have Simpa Carter, legend, activist, podcast host, the full works, and we're going to get deep in with him in a number of conversations throughout the weekend. Chris Tasker from Global Cannabinoid Solutions, thank you very much for coming. You're going to blow the socks off us all. And Robert Jappie from INTS, thank you very much for coming from a lawyer point of view. Don't worry, he's okay. And I've just remembered, Cliff, I know that you're comfy there, but would you mind going to your car and bringing my bag? Because there's a couple of books in there and I need them for speaking to Simpa, if you wouldn't mind, if that's okay. You want to take over?
So, without any further ado, we're going to pass you on to our panel and they can give us a little bit of background of how we ended up at this point. I'm sorry to make it into a 5-minute, but can you try and amalgamate how we got to this point? And no. Well, we can do our best. Sian.
Good evening, everybody. You don't have to say good evening.
Good evening, Sian.
Good evening, Sian.
Unaccustomed as I am to using a microphone, 35 years as a musician, I had to give up due to fibromyalgia. And my boyfriend turned round and he said, "Have you tried that cannabis stuff?" And I said, "No, I throw a whitey." And yes, I have a problem with THC, but in a bad way. So I discovered CBD and went looking it up and got spoofed a couple of times and spent a couple of afternoons in bed. And started discovering that the real CBD stuff I could get hold of for me was working. So I formed a group on Facebook to find out who else was out there. That was in 2015. And this group is called CBD Users. I'm no longer a moderator or admin on it because I can't be because of my job. And it's got 52,000 members. So I consider that 52,000 members as a really good introduction to cannabis. Or whatever, guys. Anyway, so from that point on, I couldn't be a musician anymore. It was hurting too much and the fatigue. So I set up a little hemp-based company making balms. They work for me. I make balms, bath salts, lotions, blah, blah, blah. Called Fiddler's Elbow Grease. It's a plug. I'm really sorry. Anyway, so from that, I joined the CTA as a member because I got harassed by my predecessor, and I became a member, and then they discovered I had a few skills like events management and graphic design, so I became a director. Last year it all changed. I became managing director. So there's my little journey.
Woo.
That's as much as I'm going to say now.
Thank you so much. And next we have Hannah Deacon, and phenomenal. I actually wrote a piece about Hannah Deacon and I cried because it's just to have to go through this from such a heart-rendering place and do so much with so much on your plate, and it is, and I completely applaud you and take my hat off to you. So, Hannah Deacon.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Thanks, Vicky. So, my name's Hannah Deacon. I got involved with cannabis because of my little boy, who's Alfie. He has a very severe refractory epilepsy called PCDH19, which caused him to be in hospital in 2016 48 times in 1 year. So just to put that into context, that was pretty much every week, taking him into hospital in an ambulance, filling him with a huge amount of drugs like steroids and anti-epileptic IV medication, stopping his seizures after probably 2 or 3 days, going home, seeing very severe side effects causing violence, aggression, mood disorders, and then a few days later back in hospital. And I did that with my partner Drew, who's here, thankfully, stuck by me all the way through it. And it was no life for him and no life for us. There was no quality of life at all. And in 2016, I decided to try and find a way of replicating steroids. So steroids work to stop Alfie's seizures, and steroids work because they reduce the inflammation in your immune system. And I found that cannabis could do that. I tried to get access to a product called Epidiolex, which I now know wouldn't have really helped him, but at the time I wasn't sure it could. And I couldn't get on that trial. So we went to Holland in 2017 and lived there for 6 months and used whole plant cannabis product called Bedrolite, which worked amazingly well. And in a nutshell, we came home, fought a very high profile media campaign, met the then Prime Minister Theresa May, who allowed us to apply for a licence, and that was issued on the 19th of June 2018. And as you know, then the law changed, and I thought, wonderful, you know, we were part of something that would help millions of chronically ill patients, and that's what, you know, an amazing legacy for us to have when there is, as Vicky said, so much grief when you have a very poorly child. It's not what you expect life to be like, and it's never easy, and you never get over it, and it's something that you have to face every day. And I thought, wow, my son has made me, or helped me, to do something really special. And actually the reality is that there is no access on the NHS, sadly. There's only 3 prescriptions. So I was able to then work because my son wasn't in hospital all the time and I wasn't his full-time carer, and I decided that I needed to use my voice to help create, I hope, a patient-focused sector in this country to help chronically ill people who need prescription cannabis. And that's what I do with Maple Tree. I work within the sector to try and remind companies why they are doing what they do. It should not be about commercial enterprise. It should only be, the first thing anyway, about patients. And obviously if people make loads of money afterwards, I couldn't give 2 craps, but it should be about people and their families. And that's what I am trying to use my voice now to remind those companies that why you're there, who you're working for, and let's make this a very safe, robust sector which gives access to people but also helps our economy and helps us create jobs and helps us grow cannabis in the UK, which is what I'd like to see, rather than it being all offshore, which is what it currently is. So sorry, that was probably longer than 5 minutes, but that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Simpa is representing our activist flavoured part of the panel. And interestingly enough, we was at a convention a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, and the most well-attended panel was the activist panel. So obviously this is something that people want to hear about, and this is something that people want to know about. And sometimes, well, as many people know, when you're trying to do it the legal way, it's even more impossible than just going all out revolution. So I think what Simpa's been doing with his podcast, and also really representing the UK as well in an international place. So I think what you're doing is amazing, and tell us a little bit more.
Firstly, thank you very much for that rather ego-inflating introduction. Thank you very much. I seek to do what I can. That's about as much as I know. I have a passion for this plant. I have a passion for nature and for human rights, for the right for us to be different, the right for us to be weird and wonderful and creative and unusual. Difference isn't a crime. The celebration and the exploration of our consciousness and our individuality shouldn't be criminalized. And substances from a very young age, basically across the spectrum of legal and illegal, were great spaces of comfort for me from a very disruptive, very violent and abusive childhood. It left me quite sort of scarred and quite traumatized. And from having quite an oppositional position to systems and to sort of the status quo, allowed me quite a unique position of perspective to be able to challenge from a kind of a wider and broader overview. And about, same as Sam, 5 years ago I walked into Product Earth, kind of depressed, kind of healed a lot of my trauma. I'd done a lot of work with LSD, with psilocybin. So I started growing my own weed, getting access to consistent cultivars, was really recognising how terpenes and stuff worked, and was like, yeah, this is for me. I can take care of this. Change my diet, change my lifestyle, but still was just empty, hollow. There was something missing. And one of my mates went, oh, there's a weed festival in the UK. I can swear. Can I swear?
Yeah.
So I'm just checking I can swear, sorry. If anyone's seen my podcast, you're aware I am a bit expletive driven. But I went, fuck off. I said, no. And yeah, he showed us the thing, and I went, oh, okay, we have to go here. And literally, the first experience I had with security and watching them pull out a giant jar of weed, look through the bag, put the weed back in the bag and give it to him was like, I'm home. I'm home. I don't know if that anecdote is going to make this final cut, but instantly, that was it for me. And as soon as then I walked in and I saw all of these companies from around the world, I saw these articulate, creative, wonderful, passionate people talking about this plant. And they weren't bad people. They weren't a threat to me. They weren't violent. They weren't thuggish. They were just human beings. They were people that had come to their own conclusions and that were brave enough and bold enough to stand in the face of prohibition, stand in the face of opposition and discrimination and stigma and say, well, again, fuck you to the system. And that ignited a passion in me that I've been chasing ever since. I stepped up for the first time on a Sunday at the UPA seminar area, and I spoke and I told my story for the first time. And it was like the world leaked out of me. And ever since that moment, I've been chasing that high again of actual acceptance, of feeling welcome, of feeling a part of something larger. You know what I mean? Of actually feeling there is a future, there is something that collectively we are all working for, and that is why I've agreed to take part in this, is to promote unity. It's what I do through the podcast. Again, shameless plug, I'll take this hint from previous speakers. Check out the Simple Life podcast. Literally every week we spend a couple of hours with guests around the world from different fields and different philosophies and worldviews, and we discuss the bigger issues to try to find commonality, to celebrate that yes, we are individuals, but the society that we have, the wider world, is built through our collective efforts.
Woo! Bloody hell.
Jesus, Simpa, how do I follow that, mate?
I was just going to say. What on earth?
Follow it with a bit of science. There we are. So, Chris Tasker is the founder of Global Cannabinoid Solutions. A very, very intelligent human being. I first met Chris at London at a cannabis event when I first met Robert Jappie, actually. You were celebrating James Dempsey's extraction. Oh, yeah. Met that. Yeah, that was good. That was the same night I met him. Same night I met Greg, the Hoot from the UK Cannabis Social Club, who introduced me to you. So Chris is a scientist. I mean, I've written it down because I couldn't. I've got his book here. I've read his book. It's a little bit overindulgent. There's actually a cartoon of him on the front, and you can tell it's him because of his beard. So he's definitely sitting on the world reading the Canna manual, dressed as a Buddha with your beard, mate. Thinking about all the wonderful things that cannabis can do. We've all been there, man. We've all been there, but no, mate, I'm taking a piss. I'm taking a piss.
I'm loving it.
But I'm trying to do all of these bits. I can't actually get my hands.
Come on.
What? Why do I have to move? There's no rush.
I'm enjoying it.
Introducing the next speaker.
No, I'm passing the baton.
Come on then.
Passing the baton. God, Jesus Christ. Look, how nice is this, right? We didn't really have anything planned, but we have a wonderful group of human beings in front of us, including Vicky. I'm going to pass the baton to Chris now to tell us a little bit about what he does.
Frankie. Well, thank you so much. I think after listening to Simpa, I'd probably follow you into battle after that beautiful speech. For those who don't know, most of you probably, my background's in the medical research of cannabinoids, looking at their applications in inflammatory bowel diseases, colorectal cancer, and so after looking at and finding out all of this incredible knowledge and information that was out there, this was sort of 2017, 2016 sort of time, and I was seeing all these patient stories emerging. The parents, the people, veterans, lovely people like Tony, Phil, and honestly, it just pissed me off. All of that information, all of the science, all of the evidence is out there, but it's not in public view yet, and so again, we've got a lot of patients being dragged through the criminal system, children that can't access their medicine, and those who can are paying a premium for that. And I saw the responsibility of the few cannabinoid researchers that are out there to get involved in the cannabis industry, support the patients as best we can, and I ended up involved with the cannabis social clubs, meeting so many beautiful people, and getting to see, rather than looking at stuff down a microscope in a test tube and looking at data, I got to see actual people's lives being revolutionized, really, and just getting their freedom back and being able to live their life once again. So that's really what drives me, and just being able to then work in this industry and see all these lovely people and the community that's sort of grown out of all of that pain, maybe. It's really beautiful to see, and I never thought I'd be sat around a fire with a really super cool bunch of people talking about cannabis and what it has to do for society. And so can't thank the Product Earth guys enough. This is probably the most inspirational event that has been thrown cannabis related. It brings everyone together, brings all of the elements of the industry together, and it's built a community. And so I think that's a testament to Product Earth, the people behind it, and yeah, it's amazing what you can achieve when you've got a community and a group of people, and even surviving through COVID. So yeah, a massive round of applause, I guess, for the Product Earth people. And yeah, I'm blown away, and I can't wait to see what this is like in 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And hopefully we can learn from all of these horrible stories and terrible truths that that are emerging now. And so yeah, very glad that we can start sharing this knowledge, and that everyone's here to start that conversation, and it can all be digital. So brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris. Right. Thank you so much. And we've got Robert. So Robert Jappie is, I suppose, on the fringes, because you're so accepted in the cannabis community, and you're. I suppose it's a new thing for this country to be. I suppose if you look at America's market, cannabis lawyer specialty is a thing. So to be a pioneer and be forerunning, and we've seen Robert in so many of these social events and meetings, and I think this is what we need, is the specialists who want to engage with the cannabis community. So thank you, Robert, for everything you're doing, and tell us a little bit about what you are doing and what you're doing at the moment.
Thank you very much, Ria, and thank you, Sam and the Product Earth team, for inviting me here today. My name's Robert Jappie. I'm a partner at a law firm called INTS. I was a criminal defence lawyer. I was a criminal defence lawyer for about 10 years, and I worked at various legal aid firms across London, doing a whole range of criminal defence work. And back in 2013, 2014, I took a short break from criminal law, and I worked for a charity called Release. Now, Release is a drugs and human rights charity based in Shoreditch. And for people who don't know what Release do, they campaign for the decriminalisation of drug possession. They think drug possession should be a public health issue, not a criminal justice issue. So I was on their legal team for a couple of years, and we were doing a lot of lobbying work and policy work, running legal outreach clinics. And at the time, I was writing articles for Release about what was happening in the US, and there was legalisation rolling out across the US state by state. And it just hit me that, you know, why are we not doing this here in the UK and Europe? Why are we so far behind where the US is? And this idea of cannabis, you know, being so far behind North America, I thought that's got to change at some point. So when I left Release, this idea of a cannabis law department just kept nagging at me. So at the firm I was at, I said, look, I want to set up a cannabis law department. And once we got past all the jokes and the laughter, you know, don't be a dope, don't make a hash of it, and all that nonsense. They said, okay, go for it. And it was early 2018. There was a small CBD industry, but it was growing really quickly. And all of these businesses had been trying to navigate this complex legal environment with no guidance, no assistance, no one was helping them. So immediately, you know, I made contact with all of these CBD companies and started helping them with the day-to-day regulatory issues that all of your businesses face. Border Force, Home Office, MHRA, FSA, everything that businesses deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then my timing was really good, because sort of 6 months later, thanks to Hannah and people like Hannah, the government suddenly legalised medicinal cannabis at the back end of 2018. So from that point onwards, it just snowballed from there. And so since then, all I've been doing is advising CBD companies and medicinal cannabis companies on all the day-to-day regulatory issues that they face. I was actually also born on 420, so 20th of April is my birthday, so I feel like I was born to do it, and to sort of become a partner at an international law firm because of cannabis is you know, the thing that makes me the happiest. As Ria says, there is an element to this. You know, I think a lot of people I speak to today are afraid of the sort of commercialisation and corporatisation of cannabis, and I understand that being a partner at a law firm, I will always be, you know, possibly the face of that. So I work very hard to remember that there are people who've been in this industry and working hard to improve the situation far longer than I have. So I do pro bono advice to Phil Monk and the WTU, and I'm always very keen to remember, this isn't about men in suits and stock markets and multi-million-pound deals. This is something that's been around for a long time, and I think it needs to be remembered. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. I suppose I should do my introduction to cannabis as well. So, I'm Victoria, hence having two names, Vicky and Ria. So I write under Ria. So my cannabis story started many, many years ago in my school uniform, where we worked in the hydroponic shop because it had a snooker table. And I just learnt loads about growing, and I love growing, and I love the plant, and I love this. I just love it. And my mum's got MS. She got diagnosed with MS when she was 28. And she got told that she wouldn't live till she was 40. And my mum's a little bit of a rebel. I know, you can't believe it. She's amazing. And she's treated herself with cannabis. She's 56 now. She's managed her pain really well. And it's been a real journey. And she had a cancer scare about 5 years ago where she had a lump in her boob, and she treated it with Rick Simpson oil. And since then, unfortunately or fortunately, there's so many people that need this medicine. We've been giving patients medicine for a long time, and we've seen people change their lives. And sometimes it's children who are having fits. I mean, to imagine having 100 fits a day is like 1 every 6 minutes, 1 every 6 minutes. And it's hard enough to be a mum just to feed them and put them to bed and make sure they can last through the day, let alone having this whole extra layer of you couldn't even comprehend how stressful that would be, And we've got a couple of kids on the books that haven't had fits for 2 or 3 years. And that's life-changing. And we've got cancers that have been reversed. We've got people who had days to live that have survived. And I sat with it for a long time. I thought, how do I talk about this without shooting myself in the foot? And that's where we created the magazine. So the magazine's called Green Queen. It's not me, but it is a cool nickname. It's just what I need, another name.
Call me Your Highness.
Call me Your Highness. It's the plant. It's not me, it's the plant. It's the plant. I'm just her humble servant, and I think a lot of us are. I think many people here just feel like we owe her something. And I owe her a lot. I owe her everything I own. Everything I own from some way, shape or form, she's provided for me. She's provided my mum's health. She's provided everything for me, and you know what? If I dedicate the rest of my life to this plant, I still couldn't pay back what I owe her. So I know that a lot of us feel like that, and this is a really unique industry because there isn't a leader. This is a place where we can all empower each other, because there is no way of leading this, because there's not one person who knows all the answers. This isn't a triangular model. There's not one person at the top that can tell us all how to do it. We've all got a little piece of the puzzle, and none of us have the whole picture, because that's not the way it works. It's forcing us to collaborate in a way that's we've got nothing to compare it to. This industry works on so many levels. And when we think about the magazine, it's like, how do you categorise it? How do you talk about the medicinal and the recreational and the extraction and the growing, but the hemp and the fields and the soil restoration and the CO2 benefits, and how do you talk about it all at once? Well, you can't. You can't take that much information in, because it takes a little bit of penny dropping. Because when you have a penny dropping moment, that in the 20s, that if we chose hemp instead of petroleum, what world would we be in? If we chose hemp to make all the plastics that are rotting everything and killing the birds and the albatrosses, and if we used hemp instead, where would we be? If we were using hemp in the cars, where would we be? If we had a health-based system that cared about keeping us healthy instead of supplying us with toxic drugs that make us worse, if we were health-driven, what would it look like? And we are the imaginers of that. What does it look like? And if we don't collaborate, there's no hope for us, because there's not one person who's got the answer. So where does the recreational market and the legal market meet? Where's the sweet spot? So that's what we're looking for. We're looking to find the sweet spot where we can meet, where everybody benefits and it's win-win for all of us. So with that in mind, where are we at the moment, and how do we collaborate to make it better for all of us?
Good answer on that one. Well done, Nick.
Yeah.
Ria.
Are we going in order?
Here you go. What do you say? Say it again.
Are you going to get that over there?
Give the same freedom to consumers as anyone with money.
Give the same freedom to consumers as anyone with money. Well, personally, I feel that decriminalisation is the way, because how can we make nature illegal? As somebody once said, to make marijuana illegal feels a little bit unnatural. But anyway, has anybody got anything to add?
Carry the team.
Anyone that's known me for several years may be aware of the, I suppose, let's borrow a phrase, the vault facing, I suppose, my opinions. Thank you, Lee. So basically, I started this with a point of quite aggression, because what I saw was cannabis sativa L. One plant and one people, but one people divided by profit as a primary motive. And so now we have hemp, and we have CBD, and we have wellness, and we have medical, and we have so-called recreational, and it's all shit. It's all a lie, it's all false dichotomies, it's all a creative, warped narrative to ensure that we don't get what is our sovereign right, our birthright, which is access to the single most valuable and viable resource for the sustainment of this species. If we don't deal with the fact that some of us like to get high, we're all gonna fucking die. We have to get over this shit. We can say that hemp this, hemp that. Every time you say hemp, you're saying that cannabis isn't that. Every time you say hemp builds a house, you're saying that cannabis can't. Every time you say medical cannabis, you're saying that what I'm smoking isn't medical or has therapeutic benefits. We have to settle the nomenclature, standardize the terminology, and work towards one process: the elimination of the criminalization of anybody at any level for any participation with this plant. Then we need to move on to the rest of the war on drugs. Once we free our consciousness and the right to be weird, wonderful, and creative, we will come up with creative, weird, and wonderful solutions to the problems that are destroying us. The plastics that are giving us cancer that we're eating a credit card's worth a week. The dioxins from all of the papers from the trees that we're deforesting. The desertification we're creating. The starvation, the choking of our atmosphere through CO2. Through the burning of fossil fuels we were alluding to before. The potential economic, industrial, and commercial applications of this plant far exceed any profit that can be made in the therapeutic market, a sports nutrition market, a drug, adult consumers market, because it will replace everything. Petroleum, gone. Or any idea of tearing something from history to power our future will be gone. In 30 to 60 days, you will start to mature a plant that is sequestering the carbon, that is renutrifying the soils, that is then going to give us a resource to replace cotton. All of the polluting textile industry, fast fashion, wouldn't be fast no more, because hemp won't, sorry, I used a word there. Cannabis won't allow it. See, I'm still learning, but my point stands is, look, I spent a long time being, screw you CBD, that means you're not THC. Screw you hemp, it means you're not cannabis. Screw you medical, means you're not adult. But it's not. We are all part of this, who's been alluded to, part of the same argument here. We're all wanting the same thing. We're just coming from different positions, because as it's been alluded to, none of us can know the whole picture, because this is the entirety of humanity's history. The blip is prohibition. This 100 years, this is the thing that has fucked us up most. You look at our records from climate, you look at the records of soil, you look at the records of carbon in ice. This 100 years, you can map it as the 1934 Hemp Act, 37 hemp tax in America. Then the start of eradication in the 70s. So literally, we reverse this by all of us coming together and going, you know what, we grow one plant. You get rid of 0.2, you make it 1%. I get my high, you get your house, you get your medicine, you know what I mean? We get everything. So unify, 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 and that is going to be the bottom line of any time you hear me speak for the rest of my goddamn life, because we either work together and we get there, or we die together. It's your choice.
So I'm going to pass that straight to you, Robert. How do we do that from a legal standpoint immediately?
So the key word there is immediately, and what Simpa is saying is there is an end goal, and everyone here wants to get there as quickly as possible. The organisations that Simpa has alluded to, they have decided that the pragmatic way to approach things is that rather than going straight for the end goal, is to break policy change down into little bite-sized chunks and use each one as a stepping stone. So for example, decrim is great, but decriminalisation is only done by consent. You can only do it with the consent of the police, and they can withdraw that consent at any time that they want. So decrim would be seen as a stepping stone to further legalisation and regulation. But some people, and a lot of people here, can't wait 5, 10, 20 years to get to that end point, because there are people here who are growing at home and live in fear of being criminalised, and the police kicking their door in at 6 a.m. So whilst breaking policy down into bite-sized chunks and using each one as a stepping stone, it is effective. And you know, there are very experienced people in the lobbying world that know how to make this work. And if you want to work with the government, then that's how you achieve these things, and you have to be patient. But Simpa makes a good point. A lot of people here haven't got that time on their side, and they don't want to be patient because they know that the end goal that they're trying to achieve is right. So sorry for the boring answer, hedging my bets and not committing to anything, but I just wanted to sort of give a bit of context to the argument.
Sorry. Well done, Robert. I'm sorry, mate. I did put you on the spot there. But you know, you talk about like the government, and you know, you need to work with the government. You got to work with the right bodies. Crown dependencies. This is something that we spoke about earlier on, right? So Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey, they've all been more open to regulation, and I know that because I'm dealing with the Isle of Man at the moment, and dealing with the government is a hell of a lot easier than dealing with the mainland government. But they don't actually call the mainland, they actually call the Isle of Man the mainland. But you know, how are you finding it with the crown dependencies right now, and how much easier it is to work with those with that side?
So I think everyone hoped that the UK would start moving things on and perhaps take its position as a leader in Europe. You know, post-Brexit, we're supposed to have all these freedoms and we can do things on our own and we don't have to ask anyone else. But this government is not doing anything. They're completely intransigent. They've got so many other things that they're messing up that they haven't got time to actually deal with this important issue. The crown dependencies have had enough. So Gibraltar, Guernsey, Jersey, Isle of Man, they've had enough. They said, we're not waiting anymore. We are going to move now, and they're starting to introduce legislation to make these jurisdictions really attractive places to do cannabis business. And some of these places have got a long history of cannabis business from the illegal market. So, for example, Gibraltar has been the landing spot for the best hash that Morocco has ever produced for decades and decades and decades. So people in Gibraltar are keen to have this business, have this investment, establish these places as you know, really, really great places to go and do business. And it's just a shame that the UK government is probably going to get left behind while all of these other places move ahead.
Thank you, Robert. And as you mentioned earlier, the key about bridging the gap. So how do we bridge over to the patients to give the patients what they need? And we was on a call with Hannah the other day, and it was really interesting because she was saying the recreational market know what they want. They can look at it and go, oh, I want it or I don't want it. Patients, we don't know what it is. We don't care. We just want it to work. So I think this is a really interesting viewpoint of a whole other perspective of the same issue. To you, Sean.
I mentioned my little group on Facebook. One of the moderators contacted me about 3 weeks ago, and she said, oh, can you get me some CBG? And I went, oh, I'm out of the stuff at the moment. And I said, have you tried looking at a medicinal prescription? And she went, oh, I looked at it and it's a bit hard. And I said, no worries, I've got a friend. And that friend might be here, it's Tim Henley, and he works with Access Canna. And I introduced formally by email, as you do nowadays. She texted me last night and she said, I've had a chat with Tim, he's put me in touch with a clinic, they've got me on a CBG trial, and I don't have to pay for it. So that to me is a stepping stone. We're 3 years down the line from, or 2.5 years down the line from medicinal cannabis being legalised. Now they're starting to look into trials, and those trials need patients, and those patients will be given free prescriptions. Even though it's private, they've got to go through that little process. She was absolutely delighted nearly cried last night. If I can help one person a day by just making that link. Now, Sam will know he's had several introductions by email to people, and Chris, I introduced you to somebody in Malta the other day to do with. I'm an introducer. I might not be big and heavy on the activist front, but I know Simpa, we've had a chat. And we've actually met and had a hug. You know, and isn't it nice?
Yeah.
Bit of hugging going on, it's great. Anyway, but I might be this managing director person, but actually what I think my role in life is introducing people to other people who I know I think they can help, and being that tiny cog in a big wheel and celebrating what we have now and knowing that it's going to change. It's already changed. We've got this medicinal thing. Yes, it's not perfect, but it's up to us to change it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, Sian. I think we are not in a perfect place at all. We have a booming private sector at the moment. We have nearly 7,000 privately prescribed patients in the UK. There are a lot of issues with product supply, with product quality. But something that Professor Mike Barnes said to me a while ago, who I work with, he said, but there's 7,000 people walking around this country telling their friends, their employers, their families about using cannabis medicinally. And that's 7,000 more people than we had before the law changed. And that is really, really important. And it's how we change this. We don't like to use the word stigma, but it still exists. There's still a lot of stigma about cannabis. And actually, if we legitimise it through, sadly, at the beginning, the private sector, then that is better than what we had before. And the one thing I would say, I think being the parent of a very chronically ill child is a very unique situation, and I think it's very, I don't take this the wrong way, but it's very difficult to understand it unless you walk in those shoes. I don't understand what it's like to be chronically ill, thankfully. I'm not ill. But I do have a very ill child who I've cared for 9 years, and I think that makes me a unique parent. And for me, I want to ensure that the product I give my son is safe, that I know what's in it, and that it's as consistent as possible. I'm not saying it should be isolate, so it should be the same every time. Absolutely not. It should be whole plant, but I want it to be consistent. And my concern with decriminalising cannabis is that how do we, if we move that quickly, how does that protect patients? Because you then have people who may be providing cannabis that isn't safe to their customers, who then would just be protected. And that's something I'm interested to hear about, because it's obviously, for me, that's why I feel it's really important that we do have something which is called medical, because then we have safety protocols that these products should go through to ensure patients are safe. And for me, being the parent of a very poorly child, that is the most important thing. But I quite agree with you, Simpa. I've struggled a bit sort of engaging with people in this sector, that because I worry that people think, she's trying to make it commercial. I'm absolutely not. What I want to see is it's safe for children like my son. But I also agree with you that we must all work together, we must all collaborate, we must all be kind to each other, because actually that is the way we'll succeed. Because actually, if everyone's arguing with each other all the time about who's right, we're never going to achieve anything. And so I'm really pleased to be here. I'm very happy to be asked, and I'm very happy to talk to everyone and listen. I'm really interested to listen to what everyone has to say, because it's, we might all not all agree, but we must respect each other and all work to the common goal in the end. But that's a question from me. Why is decriminalisation a good thing?
Got something in there.
Well, I think personally, if you look at some of the figures if you think about how many epileptic children there are, how many MS sufferers there are, how many cancer patients there are, it's an unsustainable supply chain. Like, the government can't supply it, big companies can't supply it, and in reality, it's this timescale thing. Like Robert was mentioning, it's like people haven't got 3-5 years to wait, and not necessarily everybody who's chronically ill can put a grow in. However, in reality, for the sake of 60-day, 12-week process, it may be easier for them, more cost effective, and also the enjoyment of actually growing the weed itself. And also, there's people that have already taken it into their own hands, and then they're worried about getting arrested or getting robbed and not being able to ring the police. So I think the decriminalising is just another, because the thing that concerns me personally about legal, the word legal means you can do it if you've got a licence. Well, who gives you the licence? And what's happened in Canada and America is they've kind of had this carrot on a string with a lot of suppliers and genetic companies and stuff, said, oh, get a licence, you'll get it in 2 months. And they actually don't get it in 2 months. 18 months down the line, they can't grow, they can't do any business because it breaches the terms of the licence. And it's been a kind of strategic plan of shutting down the small businesses in legal jurisdictions. But I think, I don't know, over to you, Simpa, what do you think about? I know you've got strong views about decriminalisation.
I'll try and make this one a little less showy. I'm a passionate person. First of all, I'll refer you to a shameless plug, the podcast I did with Hannah, where you can see us discuss more intimately, I suppose, and share our commonality. So I'm caveating that because I'm not disagreeing with you as a person here at all, or anything. I respect, as I did in that recording, your position. Children can't have informed consent,
No.
and because of that, they have to work within this pharmaceutical model. So I agree that there should be cannabis cultivated to pharmaceutical standards, that there should be good manufacturing practice, and that it should be then extracted and tested and rigorously regulated to ensure as much continuity as the plant will allow.
Yeah.
We know that it's difficult even with clones. We know there are companies around the world trying to get this standardization within the plant, but environmental changes and so many other things cause massive variations.
Yeah.
And
of course.
so for the adult consumers, obviously, they will get access to the same sort of products. My argument is then, if we're going to allow that cannabis to be grown to that standard, why the hell don't we just grow all the cannabis to that standard? Because if people are going to consume it anyway, it's about harm reduction. It's the same way we went through alcohol. We tried alcohol, wait, we didn't, the Yanks did, thankfully, we didn't have to. So they did alcohol prohibition, and what did it lead to? A seriously polluted and prostituted black market, or the illicit market. The same thing isn't necessarily true here, because the doctors now that have enough knowledge to be able to prescribe, they got that from the illegal dealers, from the healers, the community leaders, the people at the darkest times that protected this plant, that grew it when 14 years meant 14 years, when 5 years was what you get for a little slither of hash. It's because of those people standing in that darkness that we're able to sit here today. And all I ask is that in some way we respect and honour the legacy of that which has been, that gives us the comfortability, the city of the National Agricultural Expo Centre, and be accepted for cannabis. Because we are cannabis now. It's not just hemp and a thing expo. We're really leaning into it, and I respect the hell out of you guys for doing it. You know what I mean? For inviting me to speak and allowing me to speak my mind is controversial, potentially dangerous for you guys, but you risked it. I respect that, and I'm you know what I mean? I'm proud to be here. And honestly, like, I don't disagree with what needs to happen for regulation. My only argument is that if it's good for the child, why isn't it good for everybody else? We all deserve the consistent continuity of access to something that we know has potential therapeutic benefit and value. So therefore, if we standardise it to as much as the plant will allow, while celebrating the diversity of the cannabinoids, terpenes, the flavonoids, and all of the different concentrates and ingestion methods, then we will truly understand the width and breadth of this plant's therapeutic benefits.
Thank you. Okay, so jumping subject slightly, but we did put it in the same topic. Take a deep breath, guys. Are you ready? Novel Food Act.
Biggs,
Oh, wow.
Biggs, come on, look, I reckon, we're gonna get rid of the novel food, that's so boring. What I think we should do, I think we should open it up to the floor. Thank you very
Wait a
much.
second, let me just finish what I was saying. So, one thing I was going to say about
Endocannabinoid System.
we talk about how
That's what
a
I wanna
lot
talk
less
about
stalls
there.
are here because of the Novel Food Act. So it's been an interesting year as far as what's happened with the Novel Food Act. So just to nutshell it, full plant extract is really expensive to pass the criteria, and it's a lot more easy to do isolated products. Also, what has been flagged by several people that we write stories about and several people within the industry is the emergence of synthetic cannabinoids that are reaching the cannabis market without the need for labelling. And it's ironic that they're so on the point that you've got to label THC, even though we've been consuming it for millennia. However, we haven't consumed isolated cannabinoids, let alone synthetic cannabinoids. So even though it's can we pass over and get a sciencey answer
I
on this?
would
Yeah,
love
go for
to. One thing that's maybe not been mentioned so much, and this is my fault really, because it's what I should be talking about. I'll stay in my lane. The endocannabinoid system. So we've talked a lot about the plant, but the endocannabinoid system is fundamental to the whole cannabis medicine paradigm. And so each of us have an endocannabinoid system. That endocannabinoid system is as unique as a fingerprint. Each cannabis plant has its own unique profile, but each human has their own unique endocannabinoid system profile. And so, depending on what disease we're talking about, whether it be epilepsy, colorectal cancer, PTSD even, chronic pain, the endocannabinoid system is altered differently in each of these diseases and conditions. And so, maybe, again, touching on novel foods slightly, I really don't think that's being considered in novel foods. We're looking down the lens of, CBD, one molecule, but not looking at, stepping back from the microscope and saying, well, look, actually, what we're talking about is in the context of people. And the whole reason this magical plant works is because of the endocannabinoid system, and our body's producing, naturally, endocannabinoids. That's in a mother's breast milk. It's in the runner's high. It's a fundamental to all humans, and chocolate. And so I think we'd be amiss to be talking about cannabis without the endocannabinoid system. And what's again probably missing from the conversations around research, trials, medicine is that the endocannabinoid system. How are you going to treat people with cannabis medicine without understanding how it actually works? And we don't actually research what's going on in the body with these cannabis medicines. Instead, we look at, it's reduced the seizures, but why is that happening? What buttons is it pushing? How is that affecting the physiology? And how could we be dialing that in? How can we be creating precision medicines based on that endocannabinoid system fingerprint? And so, again, this challenges a lot of the traditional paradigms where we try to standardize humans as a whole. We're not, and again, going back to what Simpa's been saying about we're all weird and wonderful. We've all got a completely unique genetic makeup, but fundamentally we've all got an endocannabinoid system, and that fingerprint is what makes us tick, basically. And so as we go forward in the future, cannabis medicines will be dialed into the endocannabinoid system. We'll be taking swabs, we'll be taking blood samples and looking at what's going on in the body rather than just looking at the superficial effects. Don't get me wrong, that's one level of research, but to take it to the next level, we need to be looking at the body, not just the plant and the external factors, but what's going on inside. And it'd be like cars almost having, we've got, this was my analogy. It'd be like, so we've got an insulin industry, but we don't understand the pancreas, or we've got an automotive industry, but we don't actually know how an engine works, and whoa, hang on, there's a computer inside that engine that helps the fuel move. So I think that's really what's holding back the whole conversation, is that we're looking externally towards this plant and talking about the plant, and it's an incredible thing. And the whole reason we know the endocannabinoid system even exists is because of cannabis. And the secondary implications of that are that we've got an incredible endocannabinoid system and a whole new physiological opportunity to cure people, provide therapeutic opportunities, and create specific illnesses. Because, like Simpa said, not everyone's the same. Everyone is unique, weird, and wonderful. And every disease, although people have colorectal cancer, my colorectal cancer might be different from, is 100% different from your colorectal cancer. And it's different from every other person's colorectal cancer. So to be carpet bombing people with cannabis medicine is ludicrous, really, because we don't know what's going on at a cellular level or even at a atomic level, truly. So all of this is guesswork, and to move all of this forward, if we're not educating the next generation of doctors on this, 98% of doctors, I don't think, even understand or know of the existence of the endocannabinoid system. So we are holding ourselves back by not talking about that enough. And I think it's probably one of the biggest shames so far, is that all of this policy, all of these legislative changes have been made based on the plant, but we've forgotten that the whole point of these laws is to help people promote health, improve society. And so if we're not looking at the physiological element, we're just wasting our time, really, you know. But that's why we are going around in circles, pissing around, is because we're not looking at the fundamentals, which are people and the biology. So I don't know if anyone else wants to wrap that up. But
Thank you. I think the interesting thing about cannabis is it's almost like a square peg in a round hole. They're trying to recognise it as, trying to kind of group it. They're going, oh, is it like alcohol? No. Is it like a pharmaceutical? No. Is it a food? No. So it's really interesting that she's pushing the boundaries of everything so much. There's so much to talk about. It's really difficult to wrap it up because there's so many different strands that we've got running simultaneously. But I think the best way to finish a sentence, a group like this, is an action point or a study point or something like a takeaway. So maybe it might be good to go around the panel, give a takeaway, and then open the floor to questions and answers. If anyone's got a question, have a think about it. We could got time to squeeze a couple in. If you've got a question, come to the back of the deck chairs and come and tell me, and we'll do it so the mic reaches rather than reaching out to you all, if that's okay.
Going back to standardisation, we had the CTA had an AGM at Product Earth this morning, first of its kind. Here we go. And one of the motions that was brought up was about labelling, and yes, it does go back to synthetic CBD versus organic CBD, or organic isolate CBD. And one of the motions is, it was actually turned down, which is it's not a shame, but it was too emotive. There was no, we'd asked for some papers to back it up, and they didn't arrive. So we haven't just cast it aside as the CTA, but we're going to look at how to label products with CBD in them, whether they are synthetic isolate or naturally organic isolate. I hate the word natural. I hate the word pure, because venom is pure and venom is natural. But nobody's going to take that, are they? And, you know, like, a couple of years down the line, what are the repercussions of taking synthetic isolate going to be? We don't know. They've just done rat studies. They haven't done human studies. We don't know.
or measured the endocannabinoid system.
And what?
Or measured the endocannabinoid
Or
system.
measured the endocannabinoid system. I'll get that one in. So, I think our plight is going to be more along the compliance side with the CTA and looking at how products are labelled so that they don't, you know, it's not a marketing exercise in trying to fox the potential customer into buying this product because it's natural and it's pure, because it's synthetic isolate CBD. I'm going to pass it on to Sean now.
Thank you, Sean. So, I suppose my takeaway is that I personally am going to focus on developing a safe sector for people like my son, because there are many, many chronically ill people in this country who don't want to grow cannabis or don't want to be taken advantage of by someone who wants to grow cannabis for them or whatever. They want to just be prescribed cannabis, and I think that is a right, and I think it should be available. And not that I'm not disagreeing with you, Simpa, at all, because I completely agree with you what you're saying, but I think it is just two different subjects completely for me, and so I'm going to be focusing on that. And I agree with Robert as well. Governments, sadly, whether we like it or not, we are currently governed by a government that isn't keen on this plant, and actually we can't railroad them into everything. We have to do lots of little bits of policy change to make it better for everyone, and that's what I want to see, and that's what I'm going to try and use my voice to make happen, and continue to campaign, continue to lobby. And actually I really want to see, again, I agree with Rhea, what she was saying, you know, we haven't got a country that can probably provide all the cannabis needs to every person in this country. But I think we should be pushing towards a standardised growing for everyone eventually. Absolutely agree with that. And actually we have a massive opportunity in this country. At the moment, all the cannabis is imported from Australia, Israel, Canada, Canada. Do we want to continue to see that? No. We want to. I want to see a UK sector. I want to see growing. I want to see jobs being developed. I want to see growers who grow in the black market growing legitimately maybe now, and and seeing that move forward into a realm where everyone can get access to what they need. But it does have to start somewhere, and I believe at the moment that we are not, the private sector is not good enough for patients, the products are not good enough, they're coming from abroad. We have an opportunity to change that, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on. Thank you.
Great answers. I don't want to spend my time sort of again not disagreeing, but respectfully sort of saying that again. I believe they are the same subjects, because ultimately the knowledge that is within the legal sector now came from the legacy market, and we're talking about not wanting to see people exploited. Yet we're seeing private clinics prescribe on percentages of 2 cannabinoids. They're not talking about the other peripheral cannabinoids.
Well, I
They're not
know,
talking
it
about,
needs to be transparent. Absolutely agree with you.
Co-crystallization synergy between terpenes and cannabinoids. They're literally going 22 to 1%, buying it in
You don't
Israel
know what
one
you're
day,
taking.
and it's got a high leveling profile or something like that. It's giving some people anxiety. But then moving on to a myrcene heavy product that they're importing
No, I
from
quite
Canada.
agree with you.
And so the problem is access across the board. And I truly believe that if we go for that end goal first, if we actually just stop, frankly, pissing around. You said that this has to start somewhere. This started somewhere. This started, what, May 21st, I think, 1971, the day after the order came into effect. That was the day this started, the first rebellion of people going, no, I'm going to plant that seed. I'm going to spread the knowledge I have. And all of the research that came from this came from the people being brave enough to break the law. So I'm going to continue to break the law in every way I choose, with my morality and my ethics intact. I am a good person. I would never harm anyone, rob anyone, abuse anyone. I am a good person and I live by my principles. But I will still feel it is my obligation to break unjust laws. Because every time I do, somebody sees it and they in some way feel a little braver, a little stronger to then go and do the same. As Mike said to you, those 7,000 that are speaking, I agree and I'm proud that they're doing that. But what hurts me is every time it comes out of their mouth is, it's medical cannabis, it's not skunk, it's not that street weed, it's not. And what they're doing is creating a further divide that leaves us further behind. I qualify for a prescription. I couldn't afford one, but I qualify for one. But I will never get one under this current system because it is empowering a wedge within the community that I love. I love each and every one of you here today because you are my brethren, my sisters. By whatever you identify as, you are my fellow human. And I live by and for you. I literally have lived a life of suffering and of misery, and it is within the hearts and minds of each other and you lot that I found a reason to be. So I'm going to continue to fight for each and every one of you because it is the same fight. For you to be weird, you to be wonderful, you to be beautiful, creative, consume what you want, explore your consciousness, your sexuality, your desires, and your life in any which way you choose. So continue to be beautiful, you motherfuckers.
Continuing on there from some of Simpa's points. Science is often a sort of abstract conversation, and so to make it slightly real, without the patients, without people breaking the law, a lot of the research would never have happened. Because what scientists do is measure phenomena and provide an objective, rational, logic, an objective approach to measuring phenomena in society. And so without people pushing those laws and without people protesting even, the medicines that are out there now and these legal prescriptions wouldn't exist. The basis of this cannabis medicine wouldn't be out there, and we wouldn't be sat around a table here without people having broken the law and speaking up for themselves. So science owes all of its knowledge as well to patients and people basically who've pushed the baton out and risked their lives, risked their freedoms. The activists who put their lives out there on the internet and risk the police kicking their door in basically. And for some of you, you probably had the police kick the door in. So the science is there to not legitimize, but to explore and understand the problems of society and understand what patients' needs are and why people are putting themselves in these legal positions. Because, okay, it might be illegal, but homosexuality was illegal, cannabis research was illegal, psychedelic research was illegal, and it's incredibly difficult to even perform any of that research now. So the more we try and separate and polarize and distinguish things, what we need to understand is that everything's on a spectrum, and we should be exploring that spectrum rather than trying to turn everything into a binary conversation. It's all part of people and our environment and our planet. And again, science is there to, as a service to humanity and to businesses, the industry, medicine, to be able to understand and break down these conversations and put the facts on the table to be able to move this policy forward. And so it underpins law, it underpins medicine, and without science and research and that approach, we'd all just be stood around here, well, wouldn't even be stood here probably. So I think really, again, to conclude, what I'd love to see more, well, bring your friends to Product Earth next year, bring more people, share more knowledge, and without sharing all of these perspectives, without learning all of these stories and understanding people's unique perspectives, none of this would be happening and this won't evolve. And so, yeah, I just encourage more conversations, more knowledge sharing, more podcasts, more networking, more introductions, everything. And I'm really excited for the next 10, 20 years because the research already is it's incredible what's out there, but the potential for this, we've got cures for cancer potentially, we've got cures for, I don't want to start speculating, but we've got ridiculous cures, and we've got an opportunity here to start personalising medicine. And you can standardise products, but humans are far from standardised. We're, freaks really, weird and wonderful, conscious chimps. And so we're all sat around here like chimps, sat at this fire talking about weed and people and patients, and here's to many more years of that, and more knowledge and conversations and sharing. So bring all your friends next year, tell everyone about it, share all your social media videos and shit like that, and see everyone for the next couple of years, and let's get more lawyers involved as well.
I'm not sure finishing on the boring lawyer is a good idea, but there's only going to be more legalisation and regulation. It is inevitable. But legalisation and regulation in particular doesn't have to be bad. Currently it's being very badly implemented. And it's badly implemented because, one, it's not inclusive of consumers and patients, and two, it's not supportive of business. So the current medical cannabis regime is excluding people, too many people, and the novel food regulations are bad for business. You know, they're crushing businesses. So you actually have a choice. You can do something about this, and that means the next time you get an opportunity to vote, don't vote for the current government. Vote for someone who will be supportive of this industry and introduce regulation in a way that supports business and consumers and patients as well.
Completely agree with that, Robert.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.